Hello and welcome to the Army Combat Fitness Test lecture series. Today we're going to be talking about mastering the leg tuck. So our objectives today are going to be defining the Army Combat Fitness Test and the leg tuck, talking about scoring metrics. We're going to be talking about how to prep the movement, breaking down the movement into its components so that we can figure out which part of the movement you're having trouble with, and then going through some common accessory exercises for key muscle groups that would be important in being able to perform a leg tuck. So the Army Combat Fitness Test itself was initiated in October of 2020. The goals for switching to this type of a fitness test was to reestablish a commitment to fitness as a matter of national security, to shift test to functional movements required for war, to create different minimal standards based on the military occupational specialty the soldier has, so moderate, significant, or heavy, and also to create gender neutral standards. So the 6 tests involved in the Army Combat Fitness Test cover a wide range of types of fitness. The first is going to be the 3-rep max deadlift. Second will be the standing power throw. That's throwing a 10-pound medicine ball over your head as far as you can. Number 3 is your hand release push-up. That's just a different take on the classic push-up test. Sprint drag carry is a circuit kind of drill where you sprint for a distance, drag a sled for a distance, and carry dumbbells for a certain distance. The 5th event is going to be the leg tuck that we'll be getting into today, and then ending with a 2-mile run. Currently, since the rollout, the highest fail rate is in the leg tuck test itself, so I felt that this would be a nice place to start between the 6 tests to figure out if we can troubleshoot some ways to make that movement a little bit easier for people. So we have a quick video on the Army's definition of a leg tuck.
The leg tuck is the 5th event in the Army Combat Fitness Test. Soldiers are graded on the number of successfully completed repetitions. There is no time limit. Soldiers stop when they are unable to continue. Here is a breakdown of the event as it would be conducted during a test. The starting position for the leg tuck is the straight arm hang using the alternating grip with the body perpendicular to the bar. Feet are off the ground and uncrossed so that the soldier is prepared to land safely on the ground if he or she drops from the bar. The soldier must return under control to the start position in order for the repetition to count. The soldier's body should remain perpendicular to the bar throughout the motion. Body movement or swinging should be controlled to a minimum to replicate actual rope, wall, or rock climbing. Controlled movement improves strength, skill, and safety. If the soldier drops from the bar without pausing in the starting position, the straight arm hang, that final attempt will not count.
So some key points to consider here when they're scoring this test: you have to have an alternated grip, one hand in front of the other, which basically has you facing sideways for the most part. Starting each rep from a dead hang and also bringing the elbows to the knees. So these are our main indicators of what consists of a rep.
The leg tuck is the 5th event.
Slide. Okay. So these are our scoring metrics. Each minimum passing score will get you 60 points all the way up to 100 points, depending on how well you do on each test. And you can see the 3 different standards here as far as the minimum for the different MOSs. You have the heavy, the significant, and the moderate. If you go to the leg tuck column, you can see that the minimums are either 1, 3, or 5 reps. So we're not talking about super heavy on the rep side, but this is also a very difficult exercise to perform. And it is also 5th in the order. So one important point to note is taking the 6 tests as a total and making sure that you're not shooting too high on some of the earlier tests and then burning out later on in the test battery. For example, if you know that you can 3-rep max 300 pounds in your deadlift, but you're having trouble with, performing through all 6, maybe dropping your deadlift max down to 250, performing that, still scoring an 84, which is a pretty good score. And then from there, saving some energy for the tests that come later on. So an energy conservation strategy can help, generally speaking, by the time you get to the leg tuck and making sure that you have enough energy to even attempt the movement itself. As far as the leg tuck movement, I've kind of come up with 3 different strategies that we're going to talk about today to try to make this movement a little bit more doable. First is determining your movement strategy. I've watched some videos of people doing this, and I've seen two different ways of approaching it kind of come up. So your upper body dominant strategy is when your body is oriented more vertically, when you're pulling and you're using your upper body more and the knees are coming straight up to the elbows. I've also seen a second way of doing it that appears to still be legal, based on the videos that I've watched, where the lower body is more dominant and you get your movement initiated by leaning your body back. So when you get to the end of the movement, your body is oriented a little bit more horizontally than if you're pulling strictly with your arms. So depending on where you feel like your strength is and where you want to work on the movement, you can make it a little bit more upper body dominant or a little bit more lower body dominant, depending on where you feel like you're stronger. From there, there's two different ways to work on the movement itself, either building the base through the muscle groups that are involved or breaking down the movement into its component parts. So building the base that's needed for this movement, we're going to need definitely upper core strength and back and bicep strength, especially if you're a little bit more on the upper body dominant side. And then for the lower part of the movement, you're going to need hip flexion and lower core strength for sure. And then for anyone that's going to be hanging from the bar, grip strength is going to be super important. As far as breaking down the movement into its parts, we'll go through pre-movement prep. So what happens on the bar even before you pick up your feet. Phase 1, which is the initiation of the movement. Phase 2, which is actually lifting of your body. And then phase 3, which is the tuck, bringing the knees to the elbows. So some pre-movement prep key tips. So I feel like when people hang from the bar, there is a checklist that you can kind of go through in your mind to make the hang feel a little bit more comfortable and feeling like you're in an efficient position to generate force. So the prepping can occur either with your feet on the floor if the bar is low enough, or if the bar is high and you're kind of climbing up to the bar, you can do it at the point where your feet are resting on the bar so you can still get some leverage through your feet. So first step here would be feeling your grip on the bar, so making sure that everything in your hands and your forearms are active. Prepping your arms for the movement by beginning to pull down with the arms and also feeling the biceps with the elbow flexion starting to create tension at the elbow. You can prep your upper abs by exhaling and pulling the rib cage down a little bit so you're starting to create that curve in the body that you're going to need to lift it up. And also with your feet either on the floor or on the bar, try to tilt your pelvis back to create tension in the abdominals. Once you feel like you have tension in all of those areas, then you can release your feet and keep your full body tension at the start position. And as far as the breathing cycle through the movement, you want to be performing your reps, so starting your movement on a strong exhale to give your body the best positioning to try to generate force and come up into the tuck. So I want to compare two pictures here. So one is one that I found, on a military website, and the other one is me. So one is good and one is not so good. Your spine should always have a curve in it. A certain amount of curve is natural, but making sure that you're getting that positioning that we talked about in the prior slide and getting everything tense will create a neutral spine positioning, which is what you see in the green curve on the left. If you grab the bar and just hang in a very true dead hang, you will get excessive curvature in the spine and you will not be in an efficient position to generate force. That is what you see in the second position, and that is what happened when I tried this movement for the first time. So I've learned a lot since then and have improved a lot since then, but I figured I'd show you what the excessive curvature looks like and how that's really not a good position to try to lift your body from. So first step, building the base of what that feels like to create that full body tension of, not only having your muscles active, but also bringing the rib cage down and tilting the pelvis back. So these exercises are going to be all about building the base, feeling the foundational tension that's required for generating that movement. So some keys with this section is mastering the easiest difficulty level before moving on. Keep breathing during these exercises. You want the work to be done by the abdominals and not by your diaphragm. So do not hold your stability by holding your breath. You want to be breathing through these exercises. So for timed exercises, you want to be going for about 30 to 60 seconds for 2 to 3 rounds. And for exercises that are repetition, try to get 10 to 15 reps. So first, we're going to go through our dead bug progression. And the first one is going to be an isometric hold. Isometric holds means that you're creating tension in your body, but you're not actually moving your joints. So for this one, starting with your hips at 90 degrees, knees at 90 degrees, you have your hands on your knees. pressing your hands into your knees and trying to flatten out your back against the mat by tilting your pelvis down, tilting the rib cage down, and just feeling what that position feels like as you breathe, and just staying there for a few breath cycles or 30 to 60 seconds. This is just the start of starting to feel what that tension feels like. Once you feel like you've got that down, you can move on to dead bug progression 2, which is adding overhead resistance and also leg movement. So adding the overhead resistance with the band is not 100% necessary, but it does create a little bit more of a mimicking of a leg tuck type scenario, because you're going to have more activity in your lats and more resistance to pull from to get your rib cage down. So with this movement, you want to pull the band to create tension on the arms, bring the pelvis down towards the mat, and then once you have that position, on an exhale, straighten out one leg and bring it back in, and then exhale, straighten out the other leg and bring it back in. This is now adding some elements to our first position. Dead bug progression 3 is now bringing a tuck into the situation. So I moved my hands to hand over hand to try to mimic the leg tuck as much as possible with this. And then also making sure that you're still keeping that positioning that you had with your isometric, but now applying it to movement of the limbs. So from here, extend the arms and the leg and tuck them in. So now we're working into actually incorporating a tuck type movement, with the easiest position to start these types of movements being laying on your back. So just trying to get that movement down, laying on your back. That's your dead bug progression. Now we've got hollow body progression. The easiest way to start your hollow body is in more of a flex position. As you get closer and closer to your body being straight out, that's going to make it more difficult. But the idea is to start where you feel like you can be the most successful. So from here, seeing if you can hold that positioning for as long as you can. So that's your hollow body in a flex position. That's the easiest way to start. The next one would be hollow body in the extended position. So now you've straightened out your arms, straightened out your legs, and your torso is only a few inches off of the ground. So that's going to be more difficult of a hold than with your hips and your knees flexed. The idea with this, though, is to keep your posterior pelvic tilt positioning so that you're able to keep your legs straight in that position. So if you feel like either you're getting low back discomfort or you feel like you can't hold your posterior pelvic tilt, move into one of the easier progressions until you're able to hold it there. You should not feel any of these in your low back. So hollow body progression 3. Now we put it all together into a tuck. So now we've taken both of those exercises and turned it from more of a static position into doing a tuck. Now, putting it all together as far as exercises on the ground, the easiest way to actually do a tuck on the ground is with sliders. Also on hardwood floor, using a towel under the feet will give you the same slide. I'm just going to show you with the sliders. So bringing the knees up and practicing that tuck movement, but you're still on the ground. So that would be kind of putting together the section on gaining full body tension, but laying on the ground. Next, we will move into phase 1 of an actual leg tuck, which is the initiation movement. The keys with the parts where we're going to talk about breaking down the different parts of the movement is make sure you're mastering the easiest difficulty level before moving on. And as far as repetitions, because this is actual leg tuck type movements, make sure that, just do as many as you can for 2 to 3 sets. See how many that you can do with good form. So before we can move, we have to be able to hang, right? So making sure that we have the ability to hang on the bar for an extended period of time. So just start with a couple of sets of just hanging to fatigue and seeing if you can increase that time each time you try it. And then once your hangs start to get to a decent amount of time, then you can start to work on doing sets of things actually hanging from the bar. So the easiest way to initiate a pull-up is by pulling up through your shoulder blades. If that requisite movement is not there, it's going to be very difficult to generate the force to be able to pull your body up. So to be able to feel what that feels like moving through your shoulder blades, what should happen is your arm should stay straight and you're pulling up with your torso. Here I have the feet on the ground, so it's a little bit easier to feel that movement. Once you feel comfortable with getting that, then you can move to a hang to do that. And again, the arm should be staying straight and you're pulling yourself up and down into a pull-up, but only focusing on what's supposed to be happening at the shoulder blades, moving up and down. Then from there, you can work on a pull-up in a leg tuck position, but if you have your feet raised on a box, you can control what percentage of your body weight you're pulling. So you can make it pretty easy by, helping with your legs and pushing up through your legs, or you can kind of just have your legs be there or put your heels on the box to be pulling a higher percentage of your body weight. So you can kind of figure out what you want your difficulty level to be here, and you're just kind of working through that first part of the movement where the elbows are bending and you're setting up the lift. Phase 2, the actual lift itself. So with this, we're gonna get into more things where you're actually hanging from the bar. So I want to stress to make sure that whatever you are hanging on is anchored appropriately so that we don't have any accidents. And again, master the easiest difficulty level before moving on. And then as far as reps, because you are practicing the actual movement, just doing as many as you can of whatever phase you're in for 2 to 3 sets. So first one would be your leg tuck hip flexion. So this one is working on just the hip portion of it and also getting a little bit of that lower abdominal action to get posterior pelvic tilt. So just working on that portion of the movement in isolation. From there, we have leg tuck walk up the rack. So we're still getting that posterior pelvic tilt, initiating with hip flexion, but the way we're going to get to the top of the rack is by having the feet help us. So your body can just start to feel the components of that range of motion, getting all the way to the top and back down. You can use your feet to help you. And that was a nice cameo from my husband's head. I could not crop him out. Okay, next one. Once you feel pretty good with walking up the bar, you can up the ante by doing eccentric lowering. So basically walking your feet up the bar and then letting go with your feet and slowly lowering yourself back down. So walk your feet up the bar, create that tension where you need it, and then let go with your feet and slowly lower it down. If it's too difficult to come all the way down to the ground like there, I also have a version where you're coming from a box just to start working that in a short range. So either way, it's pretty much trying to hold on to it for as long as you can while you're lowering yourself down. Now, the last way to work on the lift part without actually doing a leg tuck is jumping into it. So this one kind of takes you actually through the whole movement, but you will have a lot of help in the beginning stage if you jump into it. So this would be when you feel like you're ready to, kind of complete the whole lift part, but help yourself out a little bit with a jump. And also, if the bar is higher, then you can raise it up with some kind of plyo box or something of that nature. So phase 3, the actual tuck itself. So this is when you're getting close to the top of the movement. Again, making sure whatever you are using is anchored and making sure that you master the easiest difficulty level before moving on. Repetitions, again, we're still in that, just doing it to fatigue for 2 to 3 sets. So we have our first one, leg tuck back pull down. And I want to note here that I've moved the bar down lower and I'm doing it off of a barbell because it might be a little bit scary to come up to the top of the bar and then do something to fatigue. So this can kind of help with a little bit of that safety level, a little bit of that fear level if you do it off of a lower bar where, your butt is kind of just off of the floor. I just found that to be a little bit easier as far as, coming up with these exercises that you can kind of push it a little bit and make sure that, you're not going to go too far and then fall off the bar. So leg tuck, pull down, it's going to kind of look like our leg tuck pull up, but you can really focus on that end range pull because you're starting out closer to the bar. So focusing on getting that shoulder blade squeeze back and down each time you get to the top. And that's going to be more of our vertical orientation pull. And then as far as rows, if you put your feet up on the bar, you can get more of that horizontal orientation so that it turns into more of a row. These two exercises are similar, just trying to accomplish hitting a little bit of different muscle groups with the intention of accomplishing the same goal of getting that end range tuck and pull. Now the next one here is going to be the isometric hold. So similarly to when we did our dead bug isometrics, this is going to be applied to holding the movement at its end range and seeing how long you can stay there. So feet up on the bar again. Pull yourself up into as much of a tuck position, exaggerated as you can, and then seeing how long you can stay there. And then just holding that for however much time you can. That one's not going to be for reps. So our summary page of progressions. For our build the base section, we have our 3 dead bugs. So you have isometric, then overhead resistance, and then full body tuck. For our hollow body progression, you have flex position, so being more bent so it's easier than extended position, and then putting it all together by coming through with a tuck. And then feeling a full tuck motion on the ground by using either a slider or a towel from a plank position. As far as breaking up the movement into its phases, our phase 1 initiate exercises are going to be dead hang, scap pull-ups, and our leg tuck pull-ups to focus on more the upper body initiation component. Then we have phase 2, which is our lift. So the first is the hip flexion to just get that beginning of it down, walking up the rack so that your legs can help you get up to the top, eccentric lowering so that when you get up to the top, now you can work on lowering yourself back down, and then putting it all together by performing leg tucks with a jump to help you out through that initiation phase. And then the tuck itself at the top, we have leg tuck, lat pull down, leg tuck row, and then seeing for fatigue how long you can hold it, a leg tuck isometric hold at the top. And again, I put those with a lower bar so that you feel more comfortable with going to fatigue, which might make it a little bit more comfortable for you. Okay, moving on to accessory strength. So these are exercises that hit key muscle groups to supplement your regular gym workouts with things that are geared towards muscle groups that are important for leg tuck. For timed exercises, we have 30 to 60 seconds for 2 to 3 rounds. For repetition exercises, I dropped this one a little bit to 6 to 10. These are a little bit more like resisted dumbbell type exercises for 2 to 3 sets. Also some of them are kettlebell as well. So bear hold, lat pull down. The bear hold position itself, what you see here, knees under hips and hands under shoulders, and then you just lift the knees up just enough to get the shins parallel with the floor. A bear hold in general is a very good exercise for this, but to make it a little bit more specific to a leg tuck, you can add a lat pull to it so that you're working on your stability while bringing your elbow to your knee. So you can do one side at a time there. Side plank with hip flexion. There's just another combo of core plus hip flexion. So coming up to a side plank, and then from there, working on your top knee drive. So I'm just trying to give you a few ideas of some things that are nice bang for your buck and working on more than one aspect of it at once. Banded leg lowers are nice because this works on maintaining your posterior pelvic tilt. What you want to do is put the band around one leg, and then the other one starts up as straight as you can get it with the pelvis flattened out against the mat, and then keeping that position as you lower the leg up and down. What's going to happen as a fault, if you lose your pelvic positioning, the knee is going to want to bend. You want to fight that knee bending and try to keep your pelvic position locked down against the floor. And you should be feeling that all in your abdominals. If you feel it in your low back, you can ask me about maybe a couple of regressions for this, but you should not be feeling any of the abdominal exercises in your low back as strain. So as marched with lat isometrics, so this combines a couple of things. So you're bridging up, so that requires core stability, alternating hip flexion, and then also if you press down through your hands, that's also getting you a little bit more lat activity because you're pressing down into the floor into shoulder extension. Inverted row, this is just a nice pull progression type exercise. And when you're completely inverted, you're pulling a significant percentage of your body weight. So, you are going to get a lot of bang for your buck as far as difficulty on each rep, making sure that you keep your plank position as well. Ab Turkish get up, this is probably going to be the most complex as far as stages. So if you go to the YouTube channel, it has instructions on each step, but I'll walk you through it now as well. A full Turkish getup would be going from that position all the way to standing. But for here, for our purposes, a half Turkish getup is starting when the upper body component ends and coming back down. So to walk through a rep here, first you punch up with the working hand and then bring the body up to the elbow, up to the hand, bridge up, bridge back down, onto the elbow, onto the back, bring the weight back down. Another thing to consider here is you want the arm to be oriented vertically towards the ceiling at all times, and you want your eyes to follow where the kettlebell is going. So you see I kind of keep my eyes on where the kettlebell is through the whole movement there. So that's a lot of anterior core, shoulder stability, putting weight through your shoulders. That one gives you a lot of elements there. Body saw is a nice thing to add to your plank because it gives a little bit more of a tuck-like element, because what it involves is moving your body back and forth as you do a plank. So planks are good, but this just adds a little bit more of a leg tuck-ish component to it. So that's nice. If you want to work on regular pull-ups, but you feel like they're too tough for you, a nice way to do that is with band assistance, where either you can do it with your knee on it like I have, or if the bar is high enough, you can put your foot on it. Or if the barbell has a rack on the front part here, you can always put the band across the rack. It just depends on what is the easiest and the safest setup for what you want to do. So it's basically doing pull-ups, but the band is helping you do it. So you can still work on that full body movement, that full body tension. You're just getting a little bit of help from the band. As far as grip, I find the easiest way to work on grip in a gym setting is holding onto plates, because what the plates force is the fingers being straight. So you have to activate a lot in your hands just to be able to hold on to it. So sustained plate holds are a nice way to work on grip strength that's just easily accessible in a gym setting. Putting it all together. So start by building the foundation, then master each portion of the movement or focus on the area where you specifically feel like you have trouble. Pepper in the accessory exercises to supplement, the muscle groups used or where you feel like you're the weakest, and then try your first leg tuck and see how it goes. The main caveat that I would give to trying any of these is if you feel pain in any joint or feel like you're stuck in a plateau and just not getting anywhere, be sure to consult with a physical therapist or other medical professional. It's not worth it to push through pain. Make sure that you're talking with someone if you feel like you need additional help. So if you'd like to follow more ACFT content, our Instagram is cafe.physio. Also, our YouTube channel here is going to be putting out some stuff. Follow us and DM for a sample 4-week plan where I take some of these exercises and break it down into specific sets of reps on different days as far as a sample of how to structure that. So you can let me know if you want to take a look at that. Thank you for listening. And a special thank you to Frey Training Systems. That's my friend Eric Frey for a very nice location to film all of these videos. All right, thank you so much for listening and good luck with your leg tuck.